Rick Perry's second act was well underway. Another White House bid believed to be just around the corner. But this morning, he's charged with 2 felony counts in Texas.
The grand jury today returned a 2-count indictment against James Richard Rick Perry.
Count 1, abuse of power. Count 2, coercing a public official. The charges stem from his decision to veto funding for the state's public integrity unit.
May have happened in Texas, but they're talking about it inside the Beltway. This and much more. Let's welcome back to MidPoint from that Beltway confine where he sits and ponders and watches the machinations of life. Newsmax chief political columnist, White House correspondent John Gizzi joins us. Is it fair to say that it's pondering the machinations of life inside the Beltway? That would be a good way to put it.
I think that's a good way to do it. I don't do a lot of pondering. I do reporting more, but on occasion I've been known to ponder.
All right.
Nice to be here, Ed.
Yeah, nice to see you again, buddy. All right, let's ponder then what's happening with Rick Perry and what the reaction is in Washington right now, because it really caught a lot of people, maybe not off guard, but they were smiling a little bit when they saw even a lot of Democrats and Democratic strategists basically said this is just ridiculous.
It certainly is. Now, again, everyone was stunned on late Friday when the news came down about Governor Perry being indicted. And then one has to think about it for a moment and realize this is coming from the Travis County District Attorney's Office, of which it has been said it could go before a grand jury and probably secure an indictment for a ham sandwich. Look, Ed, I'm probably one of the few people you'll have on the air who actually worked in Travis County for county government. A long time ago, and it was the assessor's office. But even then, under then District Attorney Ronnie Earl, the district attorney's office was notorious. They brought down Congressman Tom DeLay, destroyed his career on charges that were later overturned. Kay Bailey Hutchinson, Texas's first woman U.S. Senator, was indicted while state treasurer, and eventually the publicity got so adverse, the DA's office declined not to prosecute. I'm going to go out on a limb with you and say they'll try and draw a little blood from Governor Perry, then they'll declare a victory, get out, and the case will be dropped.
Do you really think this will cause any sort of a major shake in Perry's drive for the 2016 possibility of going after the presidency?
All right. Governor Perry is scheduled to be in New Hampshire this Friday, August the 22nd. I'll reserve judgment, but I would say this. I think you're going to see reports of larger than usual crowds surrounding and cheering on the governor. And I think eventually when this is all behind him, he'll proclaim himself certifiably innocent and be stronger as a presidential candidate.
So you don't see this being any sort of a bridgegate?
No, absolutely not. And again, because I know the history of that district attorney's office and Mrs. Lemberg's predecessors, and I know her clashes with the governor, and I think most people in the Lone Star State know that as well.
That's always interesting in Texas. Here we go now, an article that you have posted on Newsmax.com discussing the federal war on drugs, the law and order issue, the American Libertarian Party, and what's going on in Ferguson, Missouri. Would you expand on this?
Yes, certainly. I find it interesting that Pat Buchanan has just come out with a book, The Greatest Comeback, about Richard Nixon achieving the presidency after 2 devastating defeats. One of the reasons he cites and explains is Mr. Nixon's hard line on law and order, and saying if strong law enforcement measures were needed in the cities, he would provide them as president. Well, over the years, that position has been turned upside down to many, and now you see a growing faction in and outside the Republican Party who say law and order has been a conduit to making local police forces, armed military units more suited for combat in Iraq or Afghanistan. This is certainly the view of the Libertarian Party and its 2012 presidential nominee, former Governor Gary Johnson. He said it all began with the war on drugs launched by Mr. Nixon in 1971, which has led to local police forces having the resources equivalent to a military unit. And he said they look for reasons to deploy the armor, the half-tracks, and the heavy-duty weaponry. Ferguson is a tragic example, according to Governor Johnson. I might add that this is a position that the Libertarian Party has taken a long time before Ferguson, end the war on drugs because they feel it will lead to police forces having more power and perhaps being more threatening than they normally would. When you do have an outbreak of violence and looting, he said, and you do need heavy-duty equipment, call in the National Guard, not the local police. Again, Governor Johnson told me he hopes to run once more as the Libertarian candidate in 2016. I think he's laying the stage for it.
Do you get a sense here that what we're seeing in Missouri when we come down to the militarization, that will become part of a platform now for presidential candidates, and that will be a bigger issue when we get close to the actual election?
It's not just the Libertarian Party, Ed. I mean, that's abundantly clear. And my report was really no surprise to people who've watched them for a while. But what is interesting, Rand Paul, senator from Kentucky, very likely a presidential candidate, has taken the same position and has been very critical, and he uses the term of the militarization of police forces as seen in Ferguson. So you certainly are seeing a chasm between the law and order Republicans of the Nixon, Buchanan stripe of generations ago, and those who are critical of the police and the militarization of police these days. I think you'll see that in a couple of platforms.
30 seconds left. Former Congressman George Hansen passed away this weekend, an interesting individual.
He certainly was, and someone I covered for more than 3 decades. He fought OSHA, which went after businessmen, and the Immigration and Naturalization Service, and the IRS, calling it the Gestapo. He was also someone who had serious financial problems, got in a major dispute over whether he should list his wife's assets on his congressional disclosure form, and went to prison, and it destroyed his career. He was someone who was a hero to many, a super salesman and a patriot, but as Jim Martin of 60 Plus put it, and he knew the former congressman well, his actions caused a lot of hurt with his family and friends. A colorful character with a mixed record, a pretty unforgettable guy.
Reminder that John Gizzi, Inside the Beltway, our Newsmax.com insiders. Read him on Newsmax.com. See him right here on MidPoint every week. John, pleasure to catch up with you again, my friend. Have a great week.
You too. Can't wait to see you again, Ed.
All right, buddy. Take care. A reminder again, Libertarians, War on Drugs, Law and Order Caused Firestorm. That's by John Gizzi. It is sitting on the website right now. Go check it out at Newsmax.com. When we come back, On Point for Monday, right here on MidPoint.